The notification chimed at exactly 7:23 a.m. while I was pouring my second cup of coffee. 23 years of marriage, and Beth still thought she could surprise me. The message glowed on my phone screen like a neon sign in a dive bar window. You bought me everything except feelings, those I found on my own. I stared at those words, rolling them around in my mind like marbles in a jar. Classic Beth, dramatic, cryptic, designed to make me chase after her with questions and apologies. The old Jack would have called immediately, heart racing, demanding explanations. The new Jack just laughed. I set the phone face down on the granite countertop and took another sip of coffee. Colombian blend, the good stuff Beth always complained was too expensive. Funny how perspective changes when you discover your wife's been meeting her feelings at the Riverside Inn every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 months. The garage door rumbled open downstairs. Beth's BMW pulled in with that familiar purr of German engineering. I'd bought her that car for our 20th anniversary. She'd kissed me that day, told me I was the most thoughtful husband in the world. Her heels clicked across the hardwood floor like a countdown timer. Click, click, click. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, perfectly put together as always. Designer jeans that cost more than most people's rent, silk blouse that probably came from that boutique downtown, hairstyled like she'd just stepped out of a magazine shoot. "Did you get my message?" she asked, chin tilted up in that defiant way she'd perfected over the years. I nodded toward the phone. "Poetic. Very you." She blinked, clearly expecting a different reaction. "That's all you have to say? What would you like me to say, Beth? That I'm shocked? Devastated? Should I fall to my knees and beg you to explain what I did wrong?" Her mouth opened slightly. For once, my wife was speechless. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope, thick with papers and photographs. "Before you answer that, you might want to look at these." Her face went pale beneath the expensive foundation. "What is that?" "Receipts," I said, sliding the envelope across the counter. "Hotel bills, credit card statements, text message logs, photographs. You know, evidence of those feelings you found." Beth's hands shook as she opened the envelope. The first photograph showed her and Chase Langford walking into the Riverside Inn, his hand on the small of her back. The second showed them leaving 2 hours later, her lipstick smeared, his shirt wrinkled. "Where did you get these?" she whispered. "Does it matter? What matters is what I'm going to do with them." She looked up at me with those green eyes that had captivated me in college. "Jack, we can talk about this. We can work through—" "No," I said quietly. "We can't. You made your choice when you decided to share your feelings with Chase Langford. Now I'm making mine." I pulled out my phone and opened the social media app. The post was already typed, ready to go. A simple message. After 23 years of marriage, my wife Beth decided to share her feelings with someone else. Here's the proof. Below it, the first batch of photographs and hotel receipts. "You wouldn't," she breathed. "Watch me." I hit publish. Within seconds, the notifications started flooding in. Likes, shares, comments. Our friends, neighbors, Beth's social circle, everyone she'd worked so hard to impress over the years. The post was already being shared beyond my network, spreading like wildfire through the small city's gossip mill. My phone rang immediately. Marcia, my office manager and the closest thing to a sister I'd ever had. "Jack Parish, you magnificent bastard," she said without preamble. "Please tell me you have more where that came from." "Plenty more," I said, watching Beth scroll through the comments on her own phone, her face growing paler by the second. "Good. Maya Henderson just called the office screaming about how you're destroying Beth's reputation. I told her that's the point." Maya, Beth's best friend and enabler. I'd been wondering when she'd surface. "I'll call you back," I told Marcia. Beth was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. "You've ruined me." "No," I corrected. You ruined yourself. I just provided the documentation. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. This isn't over, Jack. Yes, I said to her retreating form. It is. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. After she left, I sat in the quiet kitchen, listening to my phone buzz with notifications. Mrs. Delaney from next door had already shared the post with the comment, "Always knew that girl was trouble." The hardware store owner had added, "Jack's a good man, deserved better." I opened my laptop and uploaded the second wave of evidence to a cloud storage account, then shared the link in a follow-up post. This batch included text messages between Beth and Chase, discussing how boring and predictable I was, how they couldn't wait until I was out of town on business so they could use our house. The response was immediate and brutal. Beth's carefully curated social media presence was being torn apart in real time. Her latest Instagram post about living authentically had hundreds of comments, most of them variations of hypocrite and homewrecker. Chase Langford, local real estate mogul and pillar of the community, was getting similar treatment. His business page was flooded with one-star reviews and comments about his character. Someone had already created a meme using his professional headshot with the caption, "Home Wrecker," specializing in breaking up properties and marriages. I poured another cup of coffee and settled in to watch the show. 23 years of marriage, and I'd finally learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the best response isn't a response at all, it's consequences. By noon, my phone had blown up with calls, texts, and social media notifications. The story had gone beyond our small city, picked up by regional gossip blogs, and shared in relationship forums across the internet. Receipts Jack was trending locally, and someone had created a compilation video of all the evidence set to a country song about cheating wives. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office when Marcia knocked on the doorframe. "You've got visitors," she said with a grin. "Beth's lawyer and some guy in an expensive suit who looks like he wants to punch something. Send them in." Beth's attorney, Richard Crane, entered first. I'd met him at a few social functions, corporate law, expensive haircuts, the kind of guy who charged $500 to review a parking ticket. Behind him came Chase Langford himself. Chase looked exactly like what he was, a man who'd spent his life having things handed to him. Tall, artificially tanned, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars. His jaw was clenched tight, and his eyes held the kind of rage that comes from finally facing consequences. "Jack," Crane said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "We need to discuss this situation." "What situation?" I asked, not looking up from my reports. "The defamatory content you've published about my client and Mr. Langford here." I glanced at Chase, who was standing behind Crane like a bodyguard. "Defamatory implies it's false. Everything I posted is documented fact." "Obtained through illegal means," Chase spoke for the first time, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Really? Which law did I break? Taking photographs in public? Reviewing my own credit card statements? Reading text messages on a phone I pay for?" Crane leaned forward. "The invasion of privacy alone." "There's no privacy expectation in adultery," I interrupted, "especially when it's conducted using my resources. Beth used credit cards I pay for, drove a car I bought her, even used our joint checking account to buy lingerie for her little adventures." I pulled out another folder, this one even thicker than the first. "Speaking of which, here's something interesting I found while reviewing our finances." The folder contained 6 months of bank statements, highlighted and annotated. Hotel charges, restaurant bills, gifts purchased on days that weren't Beth's birthday or our anniversary. A paper trail of the affair written in debits and credits. Beth spent $14,000 of our joint money on this relationship. Dinners, hotels, gifts for Chase, New clothes for herself. She even bought him a watch, a Rolex charged to our American Express card. Chase's face flushed red. That watch was a business gift. For what business? You're in real estate. She's a housewife with a lifestyle blog. What possible business could you have together? Crane cleared his throat. Mr. Parish, my client is prepared to offer a reasonable settlement in exchange for removing the posts and issuing a public apology. I laughed. An apology? For what exactly? For the damage to her reputation. Her reputation damaged itself. I just provided the evidence. This vendetta needs to stop, Chase said, stepping forward. You've made your point. Have I? I stood up, matching his aggressive posture. Because from where I sit, you're still walking around like you're the victim here. You pursued a married woman, convinced her to betray 23 years of marriage, and spent months lying to everyone in this town. Now, you want me to apologize for telling the truth? The truth? Chase's voice rose. The truth is, you drove her away with your controlling behavior and emotional neglect. Is that the story you two are going with? I opened my laptop and turned it toward them. Because I've got recordings that tell a different story. The audio file was from 3 weeks ago, captured by the voice-activated recorder I'd hidden in Beth's car after I first suspected the affair. Her voice was clear as she talked to Maya on speakerphone. Jack's so predictable, Beth's recorded voice said. He thinks buying me things means he loves me. Chase actually listens to me, makes me feel alive again. I can't wait until this is all over and I can take half his business. Chase went rigid. Crane's professional composure cracked slightly. There's more, I said, clicking to another file. This one's from last Tuesday. Chase's voice this time, talking to someone on his phone while Beth was in the hotel bathroom. She's got him completely fooled. Thinks she's just going through a midlife crisis. When she files for divorce, she'll get half of everything and we can finally stop sneaking around. The silence in my office was deafening. So you see, I said, closing the laptop, this was never about feelings or emotional neglect. This was about money and manipulation. You two planned to destroy my marriage and steal my life's work. Crane recovered first. Even if that's true, the public humiliation will continue until I decide it's enough, I finished. Beth wanted feelings. She's about to feel what it's like to be the most hated woman in town. And Chase? Your real estate business depends on trust and reputation. How's that working out for you today? Chase lunged forward, but Crane caught his arm. Don't give him ammunition. Smart lawyer, I said, because I've got cameras in this office and assault charges would really complete the picture. This isn't over, Chase snarled. You're right, I agreed. It's not. Beth destroyed 23 years of my life in 6 months. I figure I've got at least that long to return the favor. After they left, Marcia came in with a cup of coffee and a stack of phone messages. Channel 7 wants an interview, she said. So do 3 different podcasts and something called the Betrayed Husbands Network. What's our policy on media requests? Same as always. We don't comment on ongoing situations. Perfect. Let them speculate. My phone buzzed with a text from Kenny, my oldest friend and head foreman. Saw the posts. Want me to have a conversation with Pretty Boy? I texted back. Not yet. Let the internet do the heavy lifting first. But even as I typed it, I knew this was far from over. Chase Langford wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully, and Beth had never backed down from a fight in her life. They'd regroup, come up with a counter-strategy, probably try to flip the narrative and make me the villain. That was fine with me. I'd been the nice guy for 23 years, always taking the high road, always trying to work things out reasonably. The nice guy was gone, and I had plenty more receipts where those came from. The counterattack came faster than I expected. By Thursday morning, Beth had staged a complete media blitz. She'd somehow gotten herself booked on the local morning show, where she sat in a cream-colored dress that screamed, "Victim," dabbing at her eyes with tissues while explaining how I'd been emotionally abusive for years. Jack is a controlling man, she told the sympathetic host. He monitored my every move, questioned every purchase, made me feel like a prisoner in my own home. When I finally found someone who treated me with kindness and respect, he launched this vicious campaign to destroy me. I watched the interview from my office, Marcia standing behind my chair with her arms crossed. "She's good," Marcia admitted grudgingly, "playing the victim card like a professional." "She's always been a good actress," I said. "Too bad I kept the outtakes." The show's host was eating it up, nodding sympathetically as Beth described her emotional journey and how she'd only turned to Chase for friendship and support during her difficult marriage. "The photos Mr. Parish shared were taken out of context," Beth continued. "Chase and I are close friends who've been supporting each other through difficult times. Jack's jealousy and need for control turned that friendship into something sinister in his mind." "Friendship," Marcia snorted. "Is that what they're calling it now?" I was already uploading the next batch of evidence to social media. This collection included the unedited text messages between Beth and Chase, complete with timestamps and context. Messages like, "Can't wait to feel you inside me again," and "Jack's out of town next week, we can use the house," didn't leave much room for the "just friends" interpretation. I also included the hotel security footage I'd obtained through a private investigator, showing Beth and Chase in a passionate embrace in the elevator, his hands all over her body. The footage was time-stamped during one of their friendly support sessions. The response was immediate and brutal. The morning show's social media pages were flooded with comments calling them out for not fact-checking Beth's story. Someone had already created a side-by-side comparison of Beth's "we're just friends" claim with the elevator footage. But Beth wasn't done. Her lawyer had filed a restraining order request, claiming I was stalking and harassing her. The local women's shelter had issued a statement supporting her, condemning revenge posting as a form of domestic abuse. That's when Maya Henderson made her move. Maya had always been Beth's attack dog, the friend who fought her battles and spread her gossip. She organized a support rally for Beth at the downtown park, complete with signs reading "Believe Women" and "End Revenge Culture." About 30 people showed up, mostly Beth's social media followers and local women's rights activists who didn't know the full story. Maya stood on a makeshift platform, microphone in hand, delivering a passionate speech about supporting women who find the courage to leave abusive relationships. I might have let it slide, but Maya made one crucial mistake. She started reading from what she claimed were my text messages to Beth, painting me as a controlling, threatening husband. The problem was, I recognized those messages. They weren't from me at all. They were from Chase's ex-wife's divorce proceedings, which had been sealed by the court. Maya had somehow gotten access to confidential legal documents and was passing them off as evidence against me. That crossed a line. I called Kenny. "Remember that conversation we talked about? It's time." Kenny arrived at the park just as Maya was finishing her speech. 6'3", 250 pounds of construction worker muscle, Kenny had been my friend since high school and my employee for 15 years. He was also the kind of guy who could have a very persuasive conversation without raising his voice. He walked straight up to the platform as Maya was taking questions from the crowd. "Excuse me," he said politely, "but I think you've got some facts wrong." Maya looked down at him with disdain. "And you are?" "Kenny Morrison, Jack Parish's oldest friend. And those text messages you just read, they're not from Jack at all." The crowd murmured uncertainly. Maya's confidence faltered slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." Kenny pulled out his phone and played a recording. Chase's voice was clear as he talked to someone about planting evidence and making Jack look like the bad guy. The recording was from the bug I'd had installed in Chase's office. Perfectly legal, since he'd left his windows open, and the device was placed on public property outside. "That's Chase Langford talking to your friend Maya here," Kenny announced to the crowd, discussing how to frame Jack Parish with fake evidence. "Maya, You want to explain to these nice people how you got sealed court documents from Chase's divorce? The crowd turned to stare at Maya, who had gone pale. Someone in the back shouted, "Is that true? Are those fake messages?" "This is harassment," Maya stammered. "No," Kenny said calmly. "Harassment is what you and your friends have been doing to Jack. This is called consequences." He turned to address the crowd directly. "Y'all want to support women? That's great. But maybe check your facts first. Jack Parish never sent those messages, never threatened anybody, never did anything except expose the truth about his cheating wife and her boyfriend." The rally dissolved into chaos. Half the crowd started arguing with the other half. Someone was live-streaming the whole thing, and the comments were brutal. Maya tried to salvage the situation, but Kenny's revelation had destroyed her credibility. By evening, the story had shifted again. The fake text messages became the focus, with people demanding to know how Maya had obtained sealed court documents and why she was spreading false evidence. Chase's involvement in manufacturing evidence against me became the new scandal. I sat in my home office, watching the social media storm rage, when my doorbell rang. Mrs. Delaney from next door stood on my porch, holding a casserole dish and wearing the biggest smile I'd seen in months. "Jack Parish," she said, "you're a national treasure. That woman next door never deserved you, and everyone in town knows it now." "Thank you, Mrs. Delaney. That Maya Henderson's been spreading lies about you for months, telling anyone who'd listen that you were controlling and mean. Now look at her. Caught red-handed making up evidence. Serves her right." After she left, I realized something had shifted. The narrative was no longer about my failed marriage or Beth's affair. It had become about truth versus lies, justice versus manipulation. And somehow, I'd become the hero of the story. But I knew Beth and Chase weren't finished. They'd been exposed, humiliated, and caught in lies. But desperate people do desperate things. The real war was just beginning. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You think you're smart, but we know where you live. This ends now, or you'll regret it." I screenshot the message and added it to my growing evidence file. Let them come. I'd been playing defense for months, gathering evidence and documenting their lies. It was time to go on offense. The threat came to nothing, as I knew it would. Chase Langford was the type of man who hired others to do his dirty work, and Beth had never had the courage for direct confrontation. But the message told me they were getting desperate, which meant they were about to make mistakes. I didn't have to wait long. Friday night, I was working late in my garage workshop, rebuilding the engine on my 1967 Mustang. It was my therapy, the one place where I could think clearly without distractions. The garage was detached from the house, soundproofed for noise with security cameras I'd installed after the first break-in attempt at my business 3 years ago. Around midnight, I heard a car engine shut off in the alley behind my property. The motion sensors picked up 2 figures approaching the garage. I turned off the lights and watched the security monitor as they tried the side door. Chase Langford and Owen Mitchell, his business partner and former military buddy. Owen was the muscle Chase hired when he needed someone intimidated or a problem made to disappear. They were carrying a duffel bag and what looked like a crowbar. I called Kenny first, then the police, then settled back to watch the show. They got the door open within 5 minutes. Owen knew his way around locks. I watched them enter my workshop, Chase directing Owen toward my tool cabinet while he headed for my workbench. The duffel bag contained what looked like drug paraphernalia and several small plastic bags of white powder. They were planting evidence. Chase was positioning the bags near my personal tools when Kenny arrived. He came through the main garage door like a force of nature, catching them completely off guard. "Well, well," Kenny said, his voice carrying clearly through the space. "What do we have here?" Chase spun around, nearly dropping the drugs. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really? Because it looks like you're planting evidence in my friend's workshop." Kenny stepped closer, and Owen instinctively reached for something in his jacket. "I wouldn't. Kenny advised. Jack's got cameras running and the police are already on their way. Owen's hand stopped moving. Chase looked around frantically, finally spotting the security cameras. "You set us up," Chase said. "No," I said, emerging from my hiding spot behind the Mustang. "You set yourselves up. I just provided the stage." The police arrived within minutes, but by then I had everything I needed. High-definition footage of Chase and Owen breaking into my property, planting drugs, and attempting to frame me for possession with intent to distribute. The bags tested positive for cocaine, enough to constitute a felony charge. But here's the beautiful part. I didn't press charges. Instead, I made them a deal. "Here's what's going to happen," I told Chase as we sat in the police station. "You're going to confess to your business partners about the affair and the frame-up attempt. You're going to resign from every board and committee you're on. And you're going to stay away from my wife and my family permanently. And if I don't?" I showed him the footage on my phone. "Then this goes viral, just like everything else. Attempted frame-up, drug possession, breaking and entering. Your real estate license gets revoked, your business partners dump you, and you probably do actual prison time." Chase's lawyer tried to object, but Chase waved him off. He knew he was beaten. "What about Beth?" "Beth's a separate problem with a separate solution." The confession video went online that night. Chase, sitting in his office, admitting to the affair, the frame-up attempt, and his plan to help Beth steal half my business in the divorce. He resigned from the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary Club, and the hospital board. His business partners issued a statement distancing themselves from his personal conduct. Owen, facing serious charges, decided to cooperate fully. He provided details about other schemes Chase had run, including insurance fraud and bribery of city officials. The FBI opened an investigation, but Beth wasn't done fighting. Sunday morning, she held another press conference, this time claiming I'd threatened and coerced Chase into making a false confession. She produced what she said were recordings of me making threats, demanding money, and planning to destroy anyone who opposed me. The recordings were fake, of course, created using voice synthesis software. But they were good fakes, convincing enough to fool casual listeners. Several news outlets picked up the story, questioning whether I was the victim or the real villain. That's when Mrs. Delaney came through with the information that changed everything. "Jack," she said, calling me Sunday evening, "I've been thinking about something. You know how Beth always claimed she was home Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, working on her blog?" "Yes." "Well, I've got security cameras on my back porch, and they cover part of your driveway. I went back and checked the footage from the past 6 months." She paused dramatically. "Beth wasn't just meeting Chase at hotels, Jack. They were using your house. Every Tuesday and Thursday when you were at work, Chase's car was in your driveway for hours." The footage was damning. Clear shots of Chase arriving, Beth greeting him at the door in a robe, the two of them visible through windows in various states of undress. They'd been having their affair in my home, in my bed, for months. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the final video from just last week. Beth and Maya standing in my kitchen, going through my personal papers and photographing documents. They were building a case for the divorce, documenting assets and searching for leverage. I had them completely caught on breaking and entering, theft of confidential information, and invasion of privacy. But more importantly, I had proof that Beth's entire victim narrative was a lie. You don't break into someone's house and steal their documents if you're supposedly afraid of them. The fake audio recordings became irrelevant overnight. Beth's credibility was destroyed, her support network collapsed, and even her most loyal defenders started questioning her story. Maya, facing potential charges as an accomplice, threw Beth under the bus completely. She admitted to helping create the fake recordings, to breaking into my house, to coordinating the media campaign. In exchange for immunity, she provided details about Beth's real plan. Beth hadn't just wanted a divorce, she'd wanted to destroy me completely, take everything I'd built, and leave me with nothing. The affair with Chase was just step one. Step two was the frame-up and false accusations. Step 3 would have been a lawsuit claiming years of abuse and demanding not just half my assets, but punitive damages for emotional trauma. It was a comprehensive plan to ruin my life, and if I hadn't been documenting everything, it might have worked. But now it was my turn to execute a plan. And unlike Beth's scheme, mine was built on truth, evidence, and the patient application of consequences. The final phase was about to begin. The lakeside cabin had been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it in the 1950s, my father expanded it in the 1980s, and I'd renovated it completely 5 years ago. It sat on 20 acres of private land, accessible only by a single dirt road, surrounded by woods and completely isolated from neighbors. It was the perfect place for a final confrontation. I sent Beth and Chase separate messages through their lawyers, offering them a way out. A private meeting, no cameras, no publicity, where we could settle everything quietly. All they had to do was show up at the cabin Saturday afternoon, and I'd make them a generous offer. Beth arrived first, driving her BMW down the dirt road like she was heading to a social event. She'd dressed carefully, designer jeans, silk blouse, expensive jewelry. Even facing complete social destruction, she was still performing for an audience. Chase came 20 minutes later in his Mercedes, looking nervous and checking his phone constantly. He'd aged years in the past week, the stress of the investigations and public humiliation taking their toll. They met on the cabin's front porch, probably expecting to find me waiting with settlement papers and an apology. Instead, they found Marcia setting up a live stream camera and Kenny checking audio equipment. "What is this?" Beth demanded as I emerged from the cabin. "This is your chance to tell the truth," I said. "Live, unedited, no lawyers, no spin, just you, me, and the facts." "We're not doing any live stream," Chase said, turning to leave. "Yes, you are," Kenny said, blocking his path to the cars. "Because Jack's got a few things you need to see first." I'd spent the week preparing the ultimate evidence package, financial records showing every penny Beth had stolen, hotel receipts with timestamps proving the affair timeline, security footage from multiple sources, audio recordings of their planning sessions, and testimony from 3 different private investigators. But the centerpiece was something I'd been saving for this moment: video footage from inside our house. "You see," I explained as Marcia started the live stream, "I installed security cameras throughout the house 6 months ago, hidden cameras, recording everything. I told you it was for insurance purposes, remember, Beth?" Her face went white. "You recorded us? In our own home?" "I recorded my home, which you were using as a love nest with your boyfriend, every Tuesday and Thursday for 6 months. Every lie you told me about working on your blog, every time you brought him into our bedroom, every conversation about stealing my business and destroying my reputation." The live stream was already attracting viewers. Marcia had promoted it on social media as the final truth about the Parish marriage, and people were tuning in by the hundreds. "This is illegal," Chase protested. "You can't record people without consent." "Actually, I can. It's my house, and I disclosed the cameras to my wife. The fact that she chose to bring her lover there anyway isn't my problem." I played the first clip. Beth and Chase in our kitchen, discussing how stupid I was for not suspecting anything, how easy it would be to take half my business in the divorce. The viewer count was climbing rapidly, comments flooding in faster than anyone could read them. "You want to see stupid?" I continued, playing another clip. "Here's you 2 in my bedroom, planning how to frame me for domestic abuse. Beth practicing her victim act while Chase coaches her on what to say to make it believable." The footage was devastating. Beth rehearsing her tears, Chase suggesting specific phrases that would sound convincing to a jury, the 2 of them laughing about how gullible everyone would be. "Stop," Beth whispered, but her voice was picked up by the microphone. "Please stop." "Why? This is what you wanted, isn't it? Attention, drama, everyone talking about you? Well, congratulations. You're about to be the most famous cheating wife on the internet." The viewer count had passed 10,000, Local news outlets were picking up the feed. Social media was exploding with shares and reactions. Her Receipts Jack was trending nationally now, and the story was spreading beyond our small city to regional and national audiences. I played the final video, Beth and Maya in my office, photographing financial documents and discussing how to hide assets before filing for divorce. Clear evidence of premeditation, fraud, and conspiracy. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, addressing the camera directly, "this is what betrayal looks like. 23 years of marriage destroyed by greed and selfishness. But here's the thing about truth. It always comes out eventually." Chase made one last desperate play. "This man is obsessed," he said, looking directly into the camera. "He's been stalking us, threatening us, trying to destroy our lives because his wife found happiness with someone else." "Happiness?" I laughed. "Is that what you call it? Let me show you happiness." The next video was from Chase's office, recorded by the bug I'd planted weeks ago. Chase talking to a business associate about how he was playing the long game with Beth, how he'd dump her as soon as the divorce was final and he'd gotten his share of my assets. "She's useful for now," Chase's recorded voice said clearly, "but she's not exactly long-term material. Too high maintenance, too needy. Once I get my hands on Parish's business contacts and client list, I won't need her anymore." Beth turned to stare at Chase, the betrayal written across her face. "You said you loved me." "I said a lot of things," Chase muttered. The comment section was going insane. People were screen recording the stream, creating clips and memes, sharing it across every platform. The story was becoming legendary in real time, but I wasn't done yet. "Beth," I said, "you sent me a text saying I bought you everything except feelings. You were right. I bought you a house, cars, clothes, jewelry, vacations, a lifestyle most people can only dream of. But I couldn't buy you loyalty, honesty, or basic human decency. Those things can't be purchased." I pulled out a stack of papers. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign these documents transferring your interest in our joint assets to me. You're going to issue a public apology for the lies and false accusations, and then you're going to disappear from my life forever." "And if we don't?" Chase asked. "Then I release the rest of the footage. All of it. Every conversation, every planning session, every moment of your pathetic conspiracy. I'll make sure it follows you for the rest of your lives." The live stream had reached 50,000 viewers. News outlets were calling it the revenge of the year, and legal experts were already analyzing the evidence I'd presented. Beth's parents had apparently tuned in and were reportedly devastated and ashamed of their daughter's behavior. Beth looked at the papers, then at Chase, then at the camera broadcasting her humiliation to the world. "I'll sign," she whispered. Chase tried to object, but it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. The public judgment was final, and he had his own legal problems to worry about. The FBI investigation was expanding, and his business was collapsing under the weight of the scandal. As Beth signed the documents, her hands shaking, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just the calm that comes from finally reaching the end of a long, difficult journey. "There's one more thing," I said, as the stream neared its end. "Beth, you said you found feelings with Chase. I hope they were worth it, because they cost you everything else." The final viewer count was over 100,000 people. The story would be talked about for years, studied in law schools and business courses, referenced in divorce proceedings and infidelity cases across the country. But for me, it was finally over. I had my life back, my reputation restored, and my future secured. Beth and Chase could deal with the consequences of their choices. Sometimes the best response really is just receipts. The aftermath came swift and merciless. Within 24 hours of the live stream, Beth's remaining social media accounts were deactivated, her lifestyle blog was taken down, and her few remaining supporters had quietly distanced themselves. The video had been viewed over 500,000 times, spawning countless reaction videos, news segments, and think pieces about modern relationships and social media justice. Chase's real estate empire crumbled even faster. His business partners voted him out Monday morning, the FBI raided his offices Tuesday afternoon, and by Wednesday his professional license was suspended pending investigation. The man who'd built his reputation on trust and community standing was now the most notorious figure in the city. I returned to my normal routine, but nothing felt normal anymore. My office phone rang constantly with interview requests, book deal offers, and invitations to appear on talk shows. Marcia fielded them all with professional courtesy and firm rejections. "You've become a folk hero," she told me Thursday morning, scrolling through the latest batch of messages. "There's a woman in Texas who wants to hire you to investigate her husband, a guy in Florida offering to pay for your legal fees, and something called the Betrayed Spouses Network wants to make you their spokesperson." "What did you tell them?" "Same thing I tell everyone. Mr. Parish doesn't comment on personal matters and isn't available for interviews." The local reaction was more complex. Half the town treated me like a celebrity, stopping me on the street to shake hands and offer congratulations. The other half whispered about going too far and public humiliation when they thought I wasn't listening. Mrs. Delaney remained my most enthusiastic supporter. "That woman got exactly what she deserved," she declared to anyone within earshot. 23 years that man gave her, and she threw it away for a smooth-talking snake in an expensive suit. Friday afternoon, I was reviewing contractor bids when Kenny knocked on my office door. "Got a minute? There's something you need to see." He handed me a tablet showing a local news report. Beth had attempted to do one final interview, trying to salvage some sympathy by claiming she was receiving threats and harassment because of my revenge campaign. The interview was a disaster. The reporter had clearly done his homework, confronting Beth with specific evidence from the live stream and asking pointed questions about her lies and manipulation. When she tried to play the victim card, he showed her own recorded words planning my destruction. "The public has seen the evidence, Mrs. Parish," the reporter said. "They've heard you planning to frame your husband, steal his assets, and destroy his reputation. How do you respond to people who say you got exactly what you deserved?" Beth's composure finally cracked completely. "He's ruined my life," she screamed. "I have nothing left. No friends, no money, no future. He's destroyed everything." "You destroyed everything," the reporter corrected calmly. Mr. Parish simply documented the destruction. The interview ended with Beth storming off camera, leaving the reporter to conclude, "This appears to be the final chapter in what many are calling the most thorough documentation of marital betrayal in social media history." That evening, I received an unexpected visitor. Maya Henderson stood on my doorstep, looking like she'd aged a decade in 2 weeks. Her usual designer clothes were replaced by jeans and a simple sweater. Her perfectly styled hair was pulled back in a ponytail and she wore no makeup. "I need to talk to you," she said. I let her in, curious what Beth's former accomplice could possibly want to discuss. "I came to apologize," Maya said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Not because my lawyer told me to, not because I'm trying to avoid charges, but because I genuinely didn't understand what we were doing to you." "Really?" "Beth made it sound like you were controlling and abusive. She showed me edited text messages, told me stories about how you monitored her every move and threatened her when she tried to have friends. I believed her because she was my friend, and I wanted to help her escape what I thought was a bad situation." Maya looked down at her hands. But watching that live stream, seeing all the evidence, hearing her real plans, I realized she'd been lying to me too, using me to help destroy an innocent man. "What do you want from me, Maya?" "Nothing. I just wanted you to know that some of us were genuinely fooled. We weren't evil, just stupid and manipulated." She stood to leave. "For what it's worth, I think Beth got exactly what she deserved. And I think you showed incredible restraint in how you handled it." After she left, I poured myself a drink and sat in my quiet house, thinking about the past year. The betrayal, the investigation, the planning, the execution of the most comprehensive revenge campaign in modern memory. It had consumed months of my life, cost me thousands of dollars, and turned me into a public figure I never wanted to be. But it had also given me something invaluable: the truth, and justice, and closure. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, I thought it might be another threat from Chase or Beth. Instead, it was a message from someone named Jennifer in Colorado. "Mr. Parish, I just wanted to thank you. My husband left me for his secretary last year, took half our assets, and tried to turn our kids against me. Watching your live stream gave me the courage to fight back with evidence instead of just accepting his lies. I hired a private investigator, documented everything, and just won full custody plus alimony. Your story showed me that the truth really does matter. Thank you for proving that good people don't have to be doormats." Similar messages had been arriving all week. People who'd been betrayed, manipulated, or taken advantage of, finding inspiration in my refusal to be a victim. I'd become an accidental symbol of fighting back against injustice, of demanding accountability from people who thought they were untouchable. Saturday morning, I drove past the Riverside Inn where Beth and Chase had conducted their affair. A "for sale" sign sat in the parking lot. Apparently, being known as the Cheaters Hotel wasn't good for business. Chase's real estate office was empty, windows papered with legal notices and foreclosure warnings. I felt no satisfaction in their destruction, no joy in their suffering, but I felt no regret either. They'd made their choices, planned their betrayal, and executed their scheme with cold calculation. The consequences were simply the natural result of their actions. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in months. I worked on my Mustang, not because I was stressed or angry or needed therapy, but because I enjoyed it. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I was working on the car for pure pleasure. The engine was finally finished, rebuilt from the ground up with modern components and classic styling. I turned the key, and it roared to life with a sound like controlled thunder. 23 years of marriage, and Beth had never understood why I loved that car. She saw it as a waste of time and money, a childish hobby that took attention away from her. Now I understood the real difference between us. I built things. She consumed them. I created value through work and patience. She extracted value through manipulation and lies. I invested in the future. She mortgaged it for immediate gratification. The Mustang represented everything she couldn't understand about me. The satisfaction of creating something lasting, the patience to do things right, the pride in craftsmanship over appearance. As I sat in the driver's seat, listening to the engine's perfect rhythm, I realized something profound had changed. For the first time in years, I was completely content with my own company. I didn't need anyone's approval, didn't require external validation, didn't depend on someone else for my happiness. Beth had sent me that text about buying her everything except feelings. She was wrong about that too. I'd given her my feelings freely for 23 years. Love, trust, devotion, partnership. She'd thrown them away for the temporary thrill of an affair and the fantasy of easy money. But in losing her, I'd found something more valuable: self-respect. The knowledge that I'd fought for the truth, demanded justice, and refused to be anyone's victim. My phone buzzed with one final message, this one from Beth's parents. "Jack, we owe you an apology. We raised our daughter better than this, but somewhere along the way she lost her moral compass. You deserved better from her and from us. We're sorry for everything." I typed back a simple response. "Thank you. That means a lot." Then I put the Mustang in gear and drove toward the sunset, leaving the wreckage of my old life behind and heading toward whatever came next. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, that felt like a promise instead of a threat. Beth had wanted to take everything from me. Instead, she'd given me the greatest gift possible, the truth about who she really was, and who I could become without her. Sometimes the best revenge really is just living well, but sometimes, when the betrayal runs deep enough and the lies pile high enough, the best revenge is simply the truth.